They called it the Sleepless House. In my town, there's this abandoned mansion at the end of Willow Lane, wrapped up in rusty chains and shadows. It's one of those old Victorian places, the kind you'd see in a horror movie. High-pointed roofs, intricate latticework, windows that were long ago broken or smeared over with dirt, hiding whatever might be inside. Rumor had it that no one had ever lived there peacefully. People would move in, then disappear. Sometimes a family would spend a night, then pack up and leave without a word. Over the years, everyone knew to steer clear. When I was a kid, we'd dare each other to go up to the porch, sometimes tapping on the glass panes just to see if anything would happen. Nobody ever went inside, though. Not even the bravest among us. I moved away from town when I was a teenager, but I found myself coming back years later, this time with my own teenage daughter, Lucy. On a lazy Saturday, I took her driving around my old neighborhood, sharing ghost stories and reminiscing about the creepy things we used to do for fun. I even told her about the Sleepless House, expecting her to roll her eyes like most kids would. But Lucy had an unusual fascination with haunted places and whispered legends. I watched her eyes light up when I pointed it out, and she practically begged me to stop so we could explore. I don't know why I agreed, but something in me, maybe my own nostalgia or a sense of curiosity I'd buried long ago, wanted to take a look too. The gate was unlocked, swinging open on rusted hinges that screeched against the silence. We walked up to the porch, the wood groaning under our feet. The door was locked, of course, but Lucy found an open window, and before I could protest, she climbed inside. I followed, landing in what looked like a parlor frozen in time, covered in a thick layer of dust. The walls were lined with old wallpaper that had once been blue, but was now faded into a sad, washed-out green. And then the smell hit us. It was a sour, earthy smell, like damp soil and rotting wood. It reminded me of something I couldn't quite place, something that made my skin crawl. Lucy turned to me, her eyes wide with excitement. "Let's look upstairs." I was already uncomfortable, but didn't want to ruin her fun. We moved through the creaking, shadowy rooms. Each one seemed slightly wrong somehow, though I couldn't pinpoint why. Maybe it was the strange, dark stains on the walls or the sagging ceiling above. When we reached the staircase, I hesitated. I felt a chill wash over me, the kind that makes the hair on your neck stand up. Lucy was already halfway up, though, so I forced myself to follow. The second floor was darker than the first. Most of the windows were either boarded up or so filthy they barely let in any light. The air felt different up there, thicker, colder, and filled with an overwhelming sense of wrongness. Lucy had found a door at the end of the hallway. It was slightly ajar, revealing just a sliver of darkness beyond. She looked back at me, and I shook my head, but she pushed the door open anyway, plunging us into the pitch-black room. At first, I couldn't see anything. But then, as my eyes adjusted, I started to make out shapes. The walls were lined with mirrors of all different shapes and sizes, each one warped and cracked, some barely hanging on. They reflected strange, twisted versions of ourselves back at us, and something about the sight made my stomach churn. I felt like we were being watched by 100 ghostly eyes. "Look at this." Lucy's voice echoed off the mirrors as she pointed to a large one on the far wall. Unlike the others, it was pristine, clear, clean, as though it had been polished only moments before. I felt drawn to it, a pull I couldn't quite resist. As I moved closer, I saw my own reflection, but not quite. The face staring back at me wasn't mine. I mean, it looked like me, but the eyes were hollow, dark, with something sinister swimming beneath the surface. I felt my skin grow cold as I realized that the reflection was smiling, even though my face was as expressionless as stone. I took a step back, suddenly dizzy. "Lucy, we need to leave." But she wasn't looking at me. Her eyes were fixed on the mirror, transfixed, her face slack, mouth open just slightly. I watched her reach a hand toward the mirror, as if to touch her own reflection, and felt a wave of panic rise in my chest. "Lucy." I grabbed her wrist, pulling her back, and she blinked as if waking from a trance. "What?" She looked around, disoriented. "What's going on?" "We need to go," I whispered, feeling a growing urgency. But when I turned to leave, I froze. The door was gone. Or rather, the doorframe was still there, but it was as if it had been filled in with solid wall. My heart started pounding. This didn't make sense. I had just walked through that doorway minutes ago. "Mom." Lucy's voice was small, fearful. I pulled out my phone to use as a flashlight, the only light in the room now. The mirrors seemed to close in on us, their twisted reflections staring, watching, as though we were intruding on something sacred. I could see both of our reflections, but somehow they didn't look quite right. I reached out to touch Lucy's shoulder, and the reflection of my hand reached out too. Only it was an inch too high, like it was a heartbeat out of sync with my own movements. We both took a step back, feeling something wrong, something deeply, horribly wrong, settle in the pit of our stomachs. Then, as I looked in one of the mirrors, I saw a movement behind us. Just a shadow at first, but it grew, shifting and stretching, the dark silhouette of a figure forming, standing just out of view. I spun around, but no one was there. I could feel it, though, the silent, oppressive presence closing in on us. And then, in the quiet, there was a whisper. It was faint, almost indiscernible, like the wind passing through a tunnel. But as I strained to hear it, the words became clearer. "You've come to stay forever." I grabbed Lucy's hand and pulled her, searching for any way out. We pushed at the walls, tried the windows, screamed for help, but all we heard was the echo of our own voices, bouncing off the mirrors, twisted and distorted into laughter. Finally, after what felt like hours, I felt a strange shift. The light on my phone flickered, and then I realized there was a door. I hadn't seen it before, but it was there, just beyond the edge of my flashlight's glow. Without thinking, I yanked it open and shoved Lucy through, slamming it shut behind us. We stumbled into the hallway, gasping for breath. The air felt different out here, lighter, almost safe. But as I glanced over my shoulder, I saw one last image in the mirror near the door. Myself and Lucy, staring back with wide, terrified eyes, as a shadowy figure loomed behind us, grinning. But it wasn't us, and not really. I blinked, and the reflection was gone. We ran out of the house, not stopping until we were back in the car. We never spoke about that day again. Sometimes I wonder if we even left. Because every now and then, when I pass by a mirror, I catch a glimpse of something, someone watching. And when I wake up in the dead of night, I hear the whispers reminding me, "You came to stay